Right, condition scoring goats is a pretty important part of managing them. It's probably something that we haven't done a lot of as an industry, and something that needs to happen to help us manage the condition or manage the nutrition of animals. And so it's a pretty simple process of running between the short ribs, condition scoring across from the spine down to the end of the short ribs, and then filling that amount of tissue in there. And what it's telling us is how much energy reserves those animals have got, essentially. So it's a combination of fat and muscle. Everyone knows that, I guess, goats are more internalise their fat more than maybe a sheep does, but still that area is a good indication of how that animal is travelling, and therefore whether it needs a change in nutrition. Really important for those does that have scanned twins. That last trimester of pregnancy, we really need to be trying to keep good condition on those twin-bearing does to keep kid birth weight up, and so getting a handle on those animals is a really good thing to do. Doesn't take a lot of time. They just have to be freestanding. It can't be done in any sort of clamp. They just need to be freestanding like they are in a race here today. You can do it in a weigh crate individually if you're weighing at the same time, or if that helps, just contain them to do one animal. But essentially it's walking down the race, getting a handle on the spine, getting a feel. Really, for most of the time, you're just pulling off the light ones, so you don't have to spend a lot of time coming up with a number in your head. You just know that they're good enough. All those does are over condition, or just around condition score 3 or just above, which is perfect for a breeding doe. But at different times of the year, that's going to be different, particularly in some of the higher rainfall areas where they might be under a bit more pressure from the cold. And that tells us that we're running a bit low, and we've got an opportunity to change that. Sometimes, like a single bearing doe might not need a lot more feed, but definitely a twin bearing doe will often, we want to be trying to get her to kid in condition score 3 to maximise our chance of really good kid survival. So something that we really like to work on. So the process is just here. We're so end of the long ribs are there. We're in this part here between the hips and the long ribs. So in the short ribs, and we're just condition scoring. We're finding the spine. We're rolling our fingers down through that loin area and then over those short ribs. And what we're looking for is animals that a condition score 3 is flat between the top of the spine and the end of the short ribs. This girl here is a bit coming up a little bit, so it's better than condition score 3. I can't feel those short ribs at the moment, so I can't feel around them. So she's better than condition score 3. And that's the process, and really it can be quite quick. Some people will be down here on the long ribs or just feeling the ends of those short ribs, but really it's that muscle and fat that we're combining in there in condition score, because both of those resources are important or are good energy resources for an animal to go through a bit of nutritional restriction, or to get through lactation, or get through that late pregnancy period. So that's an opportunity. That's its reservoir of energy, or an indicator of that. Obviously there's other stores within the body, but that's an indicator of how she's going. So really it's a quick down the line, feeling that area. These are all what you would say is in plenty of condition, and you're looking for one that's like that one there, that's just a bit concave, just starting to drop off a bit. She's still probably okay, but if that continue, if I do her again in a month and she's dropped a bit further, or then that's an indicator we need to do something differently. It's called Lifetime Ewe Management. It's designed for sheep, obviously, but it works just as well for goats, and it helps you record those condition scores to get a mob average. So to get a mob average of the does, you just need to do 50, or if you've got less in the mob than that, then you do the whole lot. But if there's more than 50 in the mob, you still only need to do 50 to get the average of that mob, and that will tell you how that mob's going. So really that can be up the race to do something else. They might be in for a drench, or in for some other reason, in for their vaccinations, pre-kidding or whatever, and that's a time just to get your hand on them. So really recommend that every time those does are in the yards for some other treatment or some other management process, then just get your hands on a few of them. Once they're in about this much mohair, which is only a couple of months, you really can't tell that. You can tell the really skinny ones and the really fat ones, obviously, but the subtlety between condition score 2.7 and 3 and 3.25 is pretty subtle, but it can change the production potential of those animals. So we would recommend just that quick, and it's a really quick process, and it's really hard. Once you've got this much mohair and they're dry, you can't really see what's going on underneath, but your hand will tell you straight away. Alright, so race full of goats, just quickly going through them. And you can imagine if I had a chalk in my hand and there was one skinny, you just quickly put a dab of chalk on them and then draft them off at the front and treat those a bit better. But it's a really quick process. Doesn't have to be a lot of time taken, and you're really just looking for those those under condition score 3. So we would normally score into quarters, so 2.75, 2.5, 2.25, but we normally call them 2.3, 2.5, 2.7 for ease. In the app, you'll see that you've got those options. You can just score to halves, so you can go 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, if that's what you're more comfortable with. Once you've done a bit of it, you'll want to do into quarters, because you'll be thinking, well, it's not quite a 2.5, but it's also not quite a 3. But that's really the money slot. In there between sort of 2.5 to 3.5 is where we're managing most of our animals. And that's where you can sort of manipulate. And the main thing we're trying to do is drive up that kid survival by getting enough condition on those twin bearing does. And so that's without understanding what's going on in the condition, you can just end up with some lighter birth weight kids, which are therefore lower chance of survival.